Good afternoon, conference. The last 18 months has been a turbulent and testing time, not just for individuals, but for businesses also. We've seen significant changes in consumer behavior and a significant increase in demand for cardboard during that time and other paper-based packaging materials. The SPA committee are keen to get a wider understanding of this. So I'm delighted to be talking to Mike D'Angelo, President of the AICC, this afternoon. It's afternoon here in the UK, Mike, but good morning to you in the US.
Good afternoon and good morning, depending on when your colleagues will be watching us. It's a great pleasure to be with you after so many months, as we discussed.
Very good. Thanks, Mike. We've not seen you face to face since Liverpool, our trade show 2 years ago. But thanks for taking the time to speak to me today. It's been a very challenging and stressful 18 months, not just for our industry, but I guess for the world's population. How have your members coped, and what help has the AICC given to your members during this period?
Well, I appreciate the question very much, because I think it's a crisis like we've been through worldwide is the opportunity for organizations such as the Sheet Plant Association, as well as AICC, to really prove their value to members. And in very much the same way the Sheet Plant Association mobilized their efforts to be as helpful as possible, so too did AICC. And what that really means is mobilizing the membership to help one another and to provide forums to do that. So AICC, of course, did that. We started with a daily COVID update because the news was moving so quickly, and with 50 states to cope with, plus provinces in Canada, as well as our friends in Mexico comprising AICC's membership, we tried to keep track of what was going on in all three countries and posting whatever we could up on the web. That link is still there. We still do periodic updates because, of course, we're not out of the woods yet. There's always something new being thrown at us. So you can go back and look at the history going back to March 17th, I think, of 2020 is when AICC posted its first daily update. Then as the pace changed, we went to weekly updates. Now we update the information when we have information to update. The other thing that we did was we had a weekly Zoom conference where all the members pretty much came on to the Zoom. We had, in some cases, 300, 350 attendees, which, when we do webinars, we're very happy to get 50 or 60 if we're doing a topic that's very relevant. And the members spoke to each other and talked about ways they were coping, just what you're saying, Tim. And, you hear so many discussions. Well, we did this, we did that, we did this. Oh, we never thought of that. I mean, just revelations, some quite simple, others more complicated. The other thing that happened as well is some plants were stricken with several people, falling ill and therefore compromising the production capabilities and the like, because of the quarantining and the shutting down of machine centers and doing what you have to do. Members helped each other out by running jobs for each other. AICC already had a system in place to do that, kind of, especially single plant, sheet plant operations. Their customers logically ask, what's your backup plan? And AICC has a program called First Pack, which allows the owner of the customer, if you will, to maintain the customer contact, even if they're not necessarily running boxes for that customer. That was mainly put in place to help land boxes that were geographically out of a sheet plant's range or a single plant operations range, but yet still land boxes and serve the customer. So having those things in place and reminding members that had forgotten that we had done that was also something that we did. But everybody pulled together, helped each other out, and they continue to do so to this day.
Very good. A lot of parallels there with what we've done ourselves at the Sheet Plant Association. Clearly, adversity brings us closer together, but you do need a forum to gather. And I think that's probably what the associations have managed to do successfully. So that was brilliant. Now, excitingly, last month you hosted SuperCorrExpo in Orlando, Florida. I guess a pretty difficult time to host a truly international event. I've heard great things about the event, and you very kindly sent me a link, and I've watched the video post-event. Now, were visitor numbers in line with your expectations, Mike? And how was the event received?
The numbers were in line. They were far less than what we had in 2016, honestly speaking. I don't think there's any surprise there. 2016 was the last time we had SuperCor. It was supposed to run in 2020, and it did not, naturally. We wanted to stick with it. We were monitoring things very closely. AICC had run 2 events prior to SuperCor. We did a regional event in the southeastern part of the United States at the end of March, which drew about 70 people. And we followed protocols and met safely. It was just a 2-day informational meeting. We were supposed to play golf too, doing something outdoors, but of course that got rained out torrentially. Then we had our spring meeting in Amelia Island, Florida, which we had about 300 people on site, and about another 150 attended virtually. So we had a kind of a hybrid approach. Running both of those meetings successfully and safely gave us a confidence that SuperCor could run. We are partners in SuperCor with TAPI, which is the Technical Association of the Pulp and Paper Industry. Their committees, AICC's board, were in contact and kept monitoring the situation. Things were looking completely rosy. The vaccines were taking hold. We know that some Americans have problems with it. I don't know if folks in the UK are taking the same approach, but enough Americans, and certainly in a business community especially, are getting vaccinations that we felt we could have a safe event. Then the Delta variant arose and began to erode some of that confidence, but we carried on. And with the thought being that people that are vaccinated and, masks were optional, although on the shuttle buses from the hotels, they were mandatory. Social distancing was recommended. When you're sitting or standing in a show hall with the ceiling 4 stories above you, it's almost like being outdoors. So we kind of felt good about that. So we had nearly 3,000 people, which is a fairly good turnout. It's an international show. Sadly, we were missing a lot of our international friends. Sorry about the siren going by. Although we had visitors from 38 countries, they were not in the numbers that we normally get. Certainly a lot of our European friends and a lot of our Asian friends were missing from SuperCor, which generally makes up 35 to 40% of the attendance at a SuperCor. So when we had over 5,000 in 2016 and a shade under 3,000, it's about where we wanted to be. More importantly, the exhibitors were happy, generally speaking. You get out of it what you put into it, and several exhibitors engaged on social media and built it up, and a few had machines on the floor. Some had live feeds via video, so people doing creative things. But as it turned out, the folks that came down to Florida to go to SuperCor were motivated to be there. I guess you had to be. The Delta variant, the vaccinations, getting on an airplane, or driving 10 hours or 12 hours if you were afraid to get on an airplane. So you must have been going to Florida for a reason. And it turns out that a lot of people wanted to see the technology, wanted to see what was new. Equipment that was on the floor that was unsold, virtually all was sold on the first day. So, there's always the great quantity versus quality discussion whenever there's a trade show event. And we're not going to talk about quantity and quality. We're changed the verb to motivated. Buyers were motivated to be there. And the education programs that we ran pre-show were fairly well attended, which, is always a helpful thing, particularly when you're running something at 8 o'clock in the morning and people have been out the night before, as you know they are. So generally speaking, we're glad we ran it. There's some question if we were supposed to have it this week, would we do it because of the way the Delta's been evolving and the way the news has been covering things and the politics of it. And I don't know, but second week of August, it was a good time to have it. And we, again, held the show and it was safely held. We haven't had a lot of feedback of COVID cases or super spreader or anything like that, and the industry was there. The integrateds were there, the independents were there, and the exhibitors were there. We had 227 exhibitors. Some folks downsized. I don't blame them. I'd hedge my bet too. When I was on the equipment side of the business, I would have thought that way as well. So it was, and we're going to continue to have events because I think COVID's going to be with us in some way, shape, or form for the long haul, and we've got to be smart, and we've got to still be present out there. And I think that events are an important part of our business lives. And I don't say that because I work for an association. I say that because as an industry, we like to get together. You see it together.
Agreed. So well done for holding your nerve on SuperCorrExpo, and we look forward to being there in person next time you hold the event. Now, Mike, slight change in topic here. The UK's seen a big shift in demand for corrugated packaging over the last 18 months, partially fueled by Brexit, and a massive shift in consumer behaviour. You know, online shopping and delivery to the door has become the norm from a very low start in the UK. So that's driving demand for the humble cardboard box. Has the US seen a significant shift in demand for corrugated packaging over the last 18 months? And if so, which markets have been the winners and which the losers?
Box business in 2020 grew over 3.5%, and through the first half of 2021, it's grown over 6%, which if you follow the figures in, let's talk about the US market, you know, a tremendous growth year is about 1.5%. So certainly there's been a ramp up in demand. And yes, that's come primarily from the e-commerce side as well as the food side of the business. The industrial side took a bigger hit early in the pandemic, but seems to be coming back. Industrial packaging seems to be coming back nicely in 2021 and fueling those numbers. E-commerce in 2020 compared to 2019 in the United States grew 44%. 2019 was 15% growth compared to 2018. There are those that say that the pandemic has jumped demand ahead by 2 to 5 years in terms of e-commerce. And the question is, will it last? And the interesting thing about it, I mean, it's a huge number. When you consider the US retail market is, you know, $4.4 trillion. And believe it or not, e-commerce is 21% of that number, about $861 billion in 2020. So it's a huge box business. It keeps growing. Amazon, of course, is the big player. To show you the type of growth that there was, Amazon did not make the top 10 in 2020 e-commerce growth. They grew 31%, but they didn't make the top 10. That just shows you how so many other retailers who maybe weren't as involved in the space, maybe because they were afraid of Amazon, went into the space and, you know, out of necessity, they had nobody in their stores, or their stores were closed, as the case may be. So tremendous growth in e-commerce. The subscription box business, which is a component of e-commerce, was already growing. Everyone's familiar with the unboxing experience. What the subscription box business basically feeds on that, and, you know, presents that on a monthly basis and creates that expectation. The subscription box business grew tremendously. Americans began to get their groceries delivered at home. That was certainly good for the box business. And, you know, those trends are going to continue. The big box stores, you know, the Home Depots and the Lowe's, people were ordering directly online rather than going to the big box stores. They only went to the big box stores to get, you know, raw materials like, you know, lumber and plywood and, you know, gravel and things like that. Things that, you know, you can't get any other way but showing up and tossing it in the boot of the car, as it were. So those tremendous growth, the box business is enjoying it and continuing to enjoy it to this day. And most of our members are bullish. that this trend will continue for some time. They're not so foolish as to think that, 3.5, 6, maybe 10% growth, whatever the number is going to be this year, is sustainable in the long run. A lot of it was fueled, of course, by US government spending. I mean, the United States government created a lot of stimulus that went directly into the pockets of consumers, and those folks spent a lot of that money. So as the stimulus is beginning to throttle back, the spigot's being shut off, we're waiting to see what that does to consumer spending. We're waiting to see what the Delta variant does to consumer spending, because folks were starting to go back to the stores, and they were starting to fill the malls up again and the like. And either way, the box business is going to be feeding those markets. It's just a question of how. And when you talk about the demand, and it's creating some shortages in the paper business and things like that, knowing that paper mill creation, new paper mills take a long time to come online. There are at least 6 projects for new mills announced or underway in the United States between now and 2023. And SAIC has just announced that they're interested in opening a recycled mill in sometime in the next 5 years. So as new mills are coming in, there's obviously money betting that demand is going to continue for quite some time.
Yeah, it's clear that the supply problems we've had in the UK with unprecedented shortages of paper have been mirrored overseas, and that people are investing very, very heavily on the understanding that this change, this paradigm shift in using paper is going to continue. But in the meantime, there's some pain. Our members are a little bit concerned about the run up to Christmas. We've had unprecedented shortages and extended lead times, and it looks like the run up to Christmas is going to be difficult for many. So it sounds like our experience is mirrored over your side of the pool.
And the aggravating factor for the Christmas period, aside from raw material shortages and the like, is, of course, so much of what we get at Christmas time and year round comes from overseas, primarily from China, and the unprecedented backups at the West Coast ports. And you've seen the pictures, I'm sure, of the container ships just loitering offshore, waiting for their turn to come in. And some folks are afraid that if you are following your normal schedule for the busy season leading up to Christmas, meaning you're getting into it right now and you weren't into it, let's say 2 months ago, you may not be able to fulfill your orders because the actual demand from your customers, the things that are going to go in the box, if they haven't gotten them ordered yet, or they're not on their way right now, they may not get here in time for Christmas. What type of disruption is that going to create?
Yeah, we have converter members who are saying they're effectively full now because people have been putting orders in, worrying that they're not going to get their stuff on time, and it's effectively filled their order books up. So if you're not organized for your Christmas run up now, you might not find packaging. So I guess as an industry, it's nice to be in demand, but it does bring its whole set of other concerns if your supply chain can't cope to meet that demand. Now, Mike, a slight change in direction as far as questions are concerned. I don't know whether the UK is unique in this, but we're hearing more and more about legislation being directed towards single-use plastics or single-use packaging. Is the US paper market subject to environmental and sustainability pressures, and are they seen as opportunities for paper packaging?
The answer to your question is yes, maybe not in the way that it's manifesting itself in the UK. But for starters, I mean, like everyone in your association, everyone here understands the great story that paper-based packaging has to tell in terms of its recyclability, in terms of its environmental friendliness, in terms of its ability to help its customers with their green obligations, as it were. I mean, every corrugated box in this market, has roughly 50% recycled content in it. Our members extol the fact that, the fibers can get through the box making business 7 or 8 times before they ultimately get turned into a park bench or something else like that. The average North American, the US and Canada certainly, 96% have access to some form of curbside or in-town recycling capability, and they utilize that. So our messaging is already very good and very strong. And our advantages compared to plastics are already very good and very strong. The type of legislation that's being considered here is called Extended Producer Responsibility, which EPR. It's already passed in a couple of states. Maine and Oregon have passed it. It's being considered in New York and Massachusetts. And it'll be on a state-by-state basis. It won't be on a federal basis. And the advocacy efforts that have been going on in these state governments have been, EPR is a solution in search of a problem, at least as it relates to the paper-based packaging industry. But so far, the 2 states that have approved it have, they're including paper with the plastics, even though the plastics record is, as we know, there's a myth in terms of the recyclability of plastic. Most of it ends up in the landfill. It should be recycled at a higher rate. And certainly I'm not one that thinks that there's ever going to be a disappearance of plastics. I think they make our life just too convenient. So something has to be done. Unfortunately, the politicians are rolling the paper-based packaging up with the plastics. So the advocacy is now turning to what that's going to look like, is it's going to, now that these laws have been passed, it's going to take 2 to 3 to 5 years to implement them, because there's no structure in place to make EPR work. And ultimately EPR is the producer will end up paying for what the solution is to get the packaging material back into the stream somehow. And it's certainly going to be a far greater challenge for those in flexible packaging and rigid plastics than it's going to be for paper-based packaging. But the cost of it's going to be recognized, and because the politicians are heavily involved, the costs are only going to go one way, and that's up, which is going to be a challenge for everyone in the marketplace. And in terms of single-use plastics and the like. Less talk about that. It's still there. I mean, there's plastic bag bans. I'm in Alexandria, Virginia. The city just passed a plastic bag tax. They're out there on their way to a ban. So, if you don't have your own bags and the store provides you plastic, you're going to have to pay for it. And the city's going to reap the money from it. But everything's more on a grassroots level here. And in the cities, it's done very well. In the larger towns, it's done very well. But as you know, America is a very rural country. Canada is a very rural country. Mexico is a developing country. So there's not a uniformity to it because of the hodgepodge of the states and the hodgepodge of the cities and what have you. And no seeming effort on a federal level to unify any of those efforts. And that's probably for the better, because what works in one small part of the country is a disaster in another small part of the country.
Yeah, it looks like your extended producer responsibility is pretty similar, if not identical, to our own. And we're going to try and marshal 4 countries in the UK, under the EPR. So yeah, that is gaining traction and is going through Parliament as we speak, and it will have ramifications for our industry. What they are and what it's going to cost us at this moment isn't known. But part of today's conference will be to demystify us on that. So, Mike, that's
good
brilliant.
Luck with that. And please let me know, because we need all the help we can get. So if it's demystified effectively, please share that with us.
Okay. Well, the CPI are working hard on that, and we'll be listening intently to how it's going to affect our members. Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. There are so many parallels between what's going on over here to what's going on over there. I'm glad to see you're so well and so giving in your responses and your your experience. This recording will be aired at the 102nd conference on September the 20th in Tewkesbury, so only a week away. The event was sold out almost immediately, which does suggest that people are ready to come back together. So I'm hopeful that delegates will be confident to travel and enjoy the full conference experience, albeit slightly more controlled and COVID-safe environment. So do you perhaps have a message for delegates as we send you our very best wishes from the UK?
Well, I return those very best wishes. Again, it's a pleasure to speak with you. It's a pleasure to speak with the folks in Tewkesbury. I wish I could be there. Hopefully next year I will be. My message would be it's a great time to be in corrugated. We know that these opportunities that are coming our way create some challenges as well. But it's still a great time to be in corrugated because we have the great message in terms of the environment. We've got the right solution in terms of bringing products to market. In terms of essential industries during a pandemic, nothing gets to the market without the box. So we're in a very good spot. It creates challenges. It creates supply chain issues. We have labor issues in America in terms of having enough people to work in the manufacturing process. We're working to make manufacturing sexy again. So if any overtures come out of your meeting about that, we're certainly interested as well. We love these exchanges, Tim. We want to keep our two associations close and sharing. And what I said earlier, I believe COVID's going to be with us for a long time. So we've got to find ways to continue to get together and have these exchanges. And maybe we'll still do a lot like this on the camera, but nothing replaces your smile and your handshake because that's your business card.
Brilliant, Mike. That's lovely sentiments to finish with. Thank you very much. Stay safe and well. And I look forward to meeting you in person very soon, Mike. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.